Hello, Disney fans. Here again with my good buddy Bucky, who is staying right by me, aren't you, sweetheart? I know. See, he sits right there. No phone eating. And we are here to talk about the last of my Triple Crown movies, Secretariat. And that one's really appropriate for the Belmont edition because Secretariat's most famous race was the Belmont. Yes, you know Secretariat, the racehorse that I always have to remind you that you are not whenever you try to race in the carriage. Yes, you are not a thoroughbred, and your name is not Secretariat. Got that, Bucky? All right, we will see you back at my place. I had really wanted to get this out by Belmont Day, but unfortunately, life and technology both got in the way. But this movie still represents the Belmont of my Triple Crown of Disney movie series. As I said, the Triple Crown, as I said in my earlier videos, the Triple Crown consists of the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness Stakes, and the Belmont Stakes. The Belmont Stakes is the race that Secretariat is always going to be well known for. It was his greatest moment. But the story starts well before that. And it's not only Secretariat's story. Secretariat was, without doubt, an incredible horse. He's widely considered to be the greatest racehorse in all of history. But this is also the story of his owner. She's known to history both as Penny Tweedy and Penny Chenery. Chenery was her maiden name, and it was the name that she frequently used in the horse industry. And whether you would say she's better known by one or the other, that's kind of a toss-up, because both names were frequently used for her. I'm simply going to call her by her first name, because that applies. She was equally comfortable using both, and that's going to come up later, but that's further on in the story. The story begins with her getting the sad news that her mother had passed away. And she goes to the funeral, and it becomes apparent somebody has to help her dad take care of all the arrangements around the farm.
Practical thing would be to put him in a nursing home.
This is home to him. And he knows he's here. I think as long as he does, we should hire nurses and let him stay at home.
The farm has to go. And it won't bring much. It's been losing money hand over fist for years.
At first, Penny seems to be going along with the idea of selling everything. Of course, her family's business is a horse stable, and that means selling off the horses. The man that her father hired to train the racers knows the value of these horses. And as Penny goes through the books, she realizes her mother had to step in and stop her father from selling the horses for half of what they were worth. Now, she knows the trainer's gotta be in on this, especially since he sometimes trains for another owner.
Exclusive deal here. I work for them sometimes, so what?
So if you arranged a deal that gave them 4 horses at half their market value, and they paid you back, plus an extra share on everything they made, that wouldn't just be disloyal. That would be committing fraud.
Who the hell do you think you are coming here accusing me?
Someone who knows enough law to know she's right.
Penny is played by Diane Lane, who is widely praised for her performance in this film. Penny was an incredibly strong woman, as you can see already. This is the first example we see of her strength, but not the last by any means. She kicks the trainer out, and she asked her father's secretary where Bull Hancock eats lunch. Bull Hancock being the guy who was in on the deal about buying the horses. She's gonna go confront him, and she doesn't care what obstacles are in the way.
Where does Bull Hancock eat lunch?
At his club every day. But it's gentlemen only.
I love the editing of that sequence. Men only? I don't care. I'm gonna drive there and I'm gonna confront him anyway. That was the kind of person that she was. Now, despite the fact that he tried to get their horses for half of what they were worth, Bull Hancock turns out to be not too bad of a guy. They have an honest talk, and he asks his advice on what to do now for a trainer. I know that sounds weird, given that he was in on a deal with their last trainer, but they do come to respect each other. And he advises her, go talk to Lucy and Lauren, which she does. Lucy and Lauren is, I don't want to say a stereotype, but we see his kind a lot in fictional horse racing movies. The old trainer who's coming out of retirement one last time to train a really great one. This has been done in so many racing stories. In this case, this is true. She goes to see him and he says, nah, I don't do this anymore. I'm done dealing. And he actually says, I'm done dealing with owners who are just about as stupid as their horses are. He's not convinced to train for her even when she tells him that two of their mares are bred to Bold Ruler. Bold Ruler was known to be the greatest stallion of his time, with a few catches. He's known to sire fast foals, but they don't end up going the distance. This is sounding a little bit like another Disney movie, isn't it? Old trainer coming out of retirement, question of can they go the distance? And in some ways, you might say that Secretariat was a kind of Hercules in the horse racing world. So it is kind of fitting that Disney made this story. Now, Bold Ruler has a very high stud fee. If you want your mare bred to him, you're going to pay big bucks, which her father doesn't have. But he came to a deal with Bold Ruler's owner. Bold Ruler's owner, Ogden Phelps, could breed two of their mares to Bold Ruler, and shortly before the foal would be born, there would be a coin toss, and the winner of the coin toss would choose which of the two foals they wanted. And Ogden Phelps would get the other foal as a stud fee. That coin toss is coming up, and Penny's pretty excited about it.
I've been through the stud books, Jack. Bold Ruler, that's the sire. He was fast, but he couldn't last over distances. Now, the two dams are Hasty Matilda and Something Royal. Hasty Matilda is 8 years old. She's still young, and since brood mares tend to produce their best offspring while they're young, that makes her foal the obvious choice, since Something Royal's 17. But her grandsire was Prince Quillo. He had great stamina, Jack. Do you know what that means? It's
Penny.
What?
Sire and Dam and Sam I am? What is this? Come on. We need you here, Penny.
You can see here Penny's husband is not exactly supportive of her. He even tells you wouldn't even know which foal to choose. Yes, she does. Even though logic among most horse people would say go for Hasty Matilda's foal, she knows that Something Royal has the stamina that combined with Bold Ruler's speed, that's going to make a special foal. And she knows she's going to get what she wants in the coin toss either way. She wins the coin toss, she gets to choose that she gets Something Royal's foal. She loses, Bold Ruler's owner is going to choose Hasty Matilda's foal anyway, so she still gets Something Royal's foal. Win-win for her. Technically, she does lose the coin toss, but she still gets what she wants. And we can see the Secretariat is very special right from the moment of his birth.
Ever seen her?
Nope, not me. Cold stand up that fast.
Penny's dad has been not well for a long time, and she has high hopes that this colt will help him to feel better. And it is a beautiful moment in the film when she introduces him to Secretariat, who was always known as Big Red to everybody who actually knew and loved him. And for that moment, her father is himself again, and he realizes how special this colt is. And his advice to her is to just let him run the way he knows he will run.
Let him run his race, darling.
When Secretariat does finally get a chance to run his race, he loses. And that is purely the fault of the jockey. The jockey was way too inexperienced, and as Lucy and Lauren says, Secretariat wasn't ready to go out there and play bumper cars. He got slammed at the start of the race, knocked to the back, and simply was not able to regain the lead in time. Penny goes shopping for a new jockey. She's advised to see Ronnie Turcotte. Ronnie has a reputation. He won't back down, but he can be almost too much of a go-getter. He was hurt in one riding accident recently, and another horse he rode recently ran so fast that their heart literally burst. Penny isn't so sure about him until he talks to her, and he gives her what I think is the definition of what a thoroughbred is.
What difference is that? That you're hard as nails. Miss Sherry, I risk my life every time I climb on a horse. I'm not afraid. Neither are they. I want to win just like they do. It's true. The last horse I rode ran so hard his heart burst. But it's who they are. And it's who I am. You want somebody else? Get somebody else.
I don't want somebody else.
I want you.
Ronnie is played by real-life jockey Otto Tharwar, and he plays the role extremely well in my opinion, and what he says about thoroughbreds is absolutely true. There have been many thoroughbreds who show just how much winning means to them. And tragically, this brings up the dark side of racing. There are a lot of horses who have died because of how hard they push themselves. Like he said, there's horses who have literally burst their heart trying too hard on the track. There are horses who break their legs on the track and try to keep running. And this is why horse racing today has an extremely negative image. There have been horses like Barbaro, 8 Bells. If you go back into the 70s, the Great Filly Ruffian, who were all put to the test and did their hardest to pass it and paid the ultimate price. It's a toss-up with racing. You have to have more owners and trainers who actually do care about their horses. And they are raced at an extremely young age. Most thoroughbreds begin racing at the age of 2. A horse's skeleton is not fully developed until they are 6. There are some people who will argue that running at a young age actually strengthens the bones, which I could see to some extent. Exercise does strengthen the bones, but you have to know when to not push that horse too hard. Because, especially with thoroughbreds, they don't know when to not push themselves. With Ronnie aboard, Secretariat starts winning everything. He's doing amazing and is named Horse of the Year. But just when things are looking so up, Penny's dad dies. And they are left with an inheritance tax on the farm. Again, her husband is less than helpful.
When your horse people call the house, they don't ask for Mrs. Tweedy, they ask for Miss Chenery. Is that who you forgot?
Miss Chenery and Mrs. Tweedy have always been the same person. I'm wondering how it is that Mr. Tweedy could take sides against me.
While all her husband wants is for her to come home and stay in the kitchen, basically, she's worried about how is she going to pay this inheritance tax. She's told, sell Secretariat. You had the money right there. But if you win the Triple Crown, he'll be paying way more than what she could ever sell him for. She comes up with an idea in the meantime, because they can't wait for him to win the Triple Crown. And at this point, no one's even sure he will win the Triple Crown. It hadn't been done in 25 years. It's a series of 3 races, like I said in my video about Justin Morgan, that are too close together. They make it extremely hard. There's only a matter of a couple weeks between each race. And each race itself is long and grueling, and it takes a lot out of a horse to be able to do that. Penny sticks to what she believes in, and rather than sell Secretariat, she sells the rights to breed to him. If you pay her the money now, your mare will be one of the few allowed to have one of his foals. People aren't that positive that's a good idea. Just because a horse is a great racer does not necessarily mean that their foal will be. And I'm going to talk more on that later. She has to do some convincing, and she's hoping to do that with Secretariat winning. And he loses a race they absolutely cannot afford to lose. Penny and those on her team are, of course, devastated. People begin saying, Secretariat's another son of bold ruler. He has the speed, but he can't go the distance. Because now that he's 3, this is really his big test, seeing if he can go the distance 3-year-olds are required to go. Now, that's one of a couple inaccuracies in this movie. There's only a few, otherwise this movie is pretty historically accurate. There was not that much talk of Secretariat being just another bold ruler's son who had speed but no stay. There's also the fact that Sam won the Wood Memorial here, like it shows, and from that moment on, it shows a very bitter, very heated, disrespectful rivalry between the two of them. That's not how it was in real life. Penny greatly respected both Sam and his owner, and she said, it was just Sam's bad luck that he happened to be up against Secretariat. Otherwise, he was a great colt who anybody would have been proud to own. And as far as I could find out in my research, Sam's owner respected her too. It was a friendly rivalry, intense, but they did respect each other and it was kept friendly. At least between the owners. I'm not so sure Secretariat or Sam would have felt the same way about it, but the owners did keep it respectful. Well, now Penny's got to worry about, is anybody even going to be interested in a breeding right to him anymore? And can we go on to win the Triple Crown the way we're going to have to? That's one other inaccuracy. Secretariat is given almost full credit for saving the family farm, because that makes for a good story. Yes, he did play a major role in it. Yes, the farm did need the money to pay off the inheritance tax, but a lot of the credit for that actually goes to Riva Ridge. Riva Ridge was best known as Secretariat's stablemate, basically, but he was a great colt too who won both the Derby and the Belmont. Just didn't make it in the Preakness. So the movie leaves him out because, of course, that makes the better story. But otherwise, like I said, this is pretty accurate. It's eventually discovered that Secretariat lost because he had an abscess in his mouth, and that would have caused a lot of pain, especially when you put a bit in there. to control where he's going, so no wonder he didn't run his best race. But even once the abscess gets fixed, he's not eating, he's not trying to run. And I think that is based in, like I said, he wanted to win. And I think the reason why he wasn't himself even after he was physically well was he was sulking. They said Secretariat would actually throw temper tantrums if he lost a race. Penny has a heart-to-heart moment with him, and I absolutely love this. If any of you have animals, you know how it is to have that silent communication with them.
All right then. I'll see you in the morning.
It's such a simple moment, but it's definitely one of my favorite moments in the movie. Like I said, you can tell the connection between them, and you can know exactly what their silent conversation is. And it's what Secretariat needs. He gets back out there, and of course, he wins the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. He doesn't just win them, he shatters the track records for them. At this point, he's on the verge of winning the Triple Crown. No son of bold ruler has done this yet. As I said, it hasn't been done in 25 years. The question now is how hard do they push him in training? Do they keep him going full strength, or do they let him rest? Secretariat's whole future relies on this.
In all my years of training, I've never had a horse who loves to run the way this one does. You take that horse out one day, he's going to run faster the next. My instinct is to train him hard, to stoke that fire. But if I'm wrong, they will say that not only did we ruin the horse's chances at the Triple Crown, they may say we ruined the horse.
Penny makes the decision to trust Secretariat to know how much he can handle. Remember what I said before. This could have been a huge mistake. A thoroughbred will not back off during a race. It doesn't matter if they have a broken leg, if there's pain in their chest from a strain on the heart, if their breathing is labored from running too hard, they will not quit, period. That is born right into them. That's a well-known trait of the thoroughbred breed. This could have ended in disaster. And it seems like it will be made even worse by Sam's owner. Remember, Sam is Secretariat's main rival. Secretariat beat him twice in the Derby and the Preakness. Sam came in second to Secretariat both times. Sam's owner even makes the comment that he actually broke the track record too. And Penny's response is, I agree. Sam did have the second fastest Derby of all time. If not for Secretariat, he would have had the fastest. As I said, this movie shows a much more unfriendly rivalry than what there really was. Sam's owner doesn't take this kindly, and he tells his jockey to make Secretariat push himself even harder on Belmont Day, knowing that Secretariat has already been pushing himself. He thinks he's going to tire Secretariat out. He doesn't know this horse too well.
It's Secretariat, it's them! Oh man, this is a catastrophe! It's too fast! It's Secretariat!
Let it run, Ronnie! Let it run!
Tram, it's Secretariat pulling away at blazing speed! With a half mile still to run, Secretariat sprinting away! 4 lengths! 6!
You can see here just how far ahead of the rest of the horses Secretariat and Sam already were. And everybody's saying, this is insane. This is way too fast. The Belmont is an extremely long race. You simply cannot go that fast over that long of a distance. And yet they're doing it. And Penny knows Secretariat is losing more energy being held back and fighting against that than if Ronnie just lets him run. That's why she shouts, let him run, let him do this. And he starts to pull away, and what happens after that is considered one of the greatest moments in sports history, period, of any sport.
The final third, Secretariat is looking like a tremendous machine.
That's impossible.
Secretariat's lead keeps increasing until he is 31 horse lengths ahead of the others. This is unheard of, and that record has never been equaled to this day. He not only could handle that distance at that speed, but he was continuing to go faster and faster as the race continued. The only reason he didn't win by more than 31 lengths is he ran out of track. He won before he could get even further ahead. That is absolutely insane. The movie does it justice, but I've also included in the description a link to Secretariat actually winning the Belmont, because as incredible as the movie shows it, nothing can equal the real thing. It was unbelievable. The movie concludes with telling what happened to everybody, and I do have to touch on a few other figures in Secretariat's life and a bit on what happened to him after his incredible victory at the Belmont. The African American gentleman that you see with him is Eddie Sweat. Eddie was his groom, and a lot of times with racehorses, their groom is actually the person closest to them. And they were known to have an incredible bond. To Eddie, Secretariat was always Big Red, the way he was to everybody who loved him. And even though, of course, Penny loved Secretariat dearly, Eddie probably loved him more than anyone else did, and Secretariat felt the same way about him. The lady, the secretary who backed up Penny and helped her in the beginning, that's Elizabeth Ham, and she actually inspired Secretariat's name, Secretary, Secretariat. Unfortunately, there's rules when naming thoroughbreds. The Jockey Club has to approve them, so they couldn't just call him Big Red the way they all wanted. But Secretariat turned out to be a pretty sweet name, I think, given the connection that she had with Penny. Secretariat's jockey, Ronnie, tragically was in a severe riding accident later, and he broke his back. He's still alive, but he never walked again after that accident. That was several years after Secretariat retired on a different horse, but it's still, of course, a great tragedy. Penny lived long enough to see this movie made. She's actually in the audience for a moment at the Belmont. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but she is there. Secretariat himself went on to be a breeding stallion. Remember, Penny sold the rights to breed him. Those people probably thought they got ripped off at first. Secretariat's foals were okay at the track, but they were nowhere close to how great he was. Unusual thing with him, his foals didn't do all that great, but his daughters turned out to be incredible broodmares, with their foals going on to greatness. One in particular, named Terlingua, was the mother of a stallion named Stormcat, and he's in a lot of great pedigrees of famous racehorses today. So there's that factor where the greatness kind of skips a generation in Secretariat's bloodline, and it's passed on through the mares. Secretariat only lived to be 19 and had to be put down due to laminitis, which is an illness that horses get. It's a problem with blood flow in their legs, and there's a lot of different factors that can cause it. It was not due to his being a racehorse, but it was, of course, a great tragedy to lose him at a relatively young age for a horse. But when they did an autopsy on him, remember I talked about a thoroughbred can burst their heart running like that. They found out why exactly Secretariat was able to run the way he did. His heart was over 2 times, almost 3 times the size of a normal thoroughbred's heart. And it was built, they said, like it was basically the perfect engine. And everybody, I know it sounds weird to say, but everybody just stared in wonder when they did the autopsy. He was a freak of nature in a good way. He's often referred to as the horse that God built. There's never been another racehorse who even has come close to what he accomplished, especially what he did in the Belmont. And he's always going to be remembered for that. That concludes my Triple Crown series. There are a couple other horse movies that Disney made, and I do plan to touch on them at a later date. As much as I love horses, this is meant to be a Disney channel, but there will be more Disney horse movie reviews in the future. My next ones up will be the Descendants movies. I also plan to continue reviewing Once Upon a Time. I hope to see you there, and until next time, remember the magic.